Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all again. Missed being with you last week. Lord willing, we'll continue our study in the book of Judges. I believe we left off on verse 9 last week, so Judges chapter 4, verse 10 is where we'll pick up. I hope you all are doing well. I know it's a busy time of year, a sick time of year, stressful time of year at times, so I pray you all are doing well. I thank you all I know everyone pitches in to help take care of my family when I'm gone, so I'm just very thankful for that. Thankful I can glorify the Lord about that to my co-workers who don't quite understand how Allie can do it when I'm gone, and it's because we have a church family that helps take care of us, so thank you. It's a good witness to be able to share. So in Judges chapter 4, verses 1 through 9, we covered that Israel fell into wickedness again, sadly. And we see that Deborah, who was a prophetess, which just means a female prophet, a female prophet, is now the judge for Israel. Israel had fallen yet again into great wickedness, and she was now the judge of the nation. When we talked last time, I believe 2 weeks ago, I believe a big part of that wickedness that had taken place at this time was a lack of godly masculine leadership that has been instructed in God's word, which I believe is why Deborah was raised to be the judge. I don't believe you had men filling their roles as they should have. I believe this is happening because men were not filling their godly duty at this time, just like today in our homes. A lot of issues we have, I think, with our children, with the nation we live in, is because we don't have men stepping up and being the godly leaders of their home that they should be. And again, my opinion isn't worth much, but I believe you see that because in verse 6 and 7, we see that Barak would not go and fight Sisera, who was the general of Jabin's army, even though God had given him instruction to do so. He would only go and fight if Deborah, the judge, would go with him. Now, last time I was up here, I was pretty tough on Barak, calling him a coward, and I believe he was coward in his action here, but the Bible does talk that he was used to bring deliverance to the children of Israel. You can see it first if we turn to 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 12. First Samuel chapter 12, we'll just pick up in verse 9. Verse 9, it says, "And when they forgot the Lord their God, they being the children of Israel, he sold them into the hand of Sisera, captain of the host of Hazor, and into the hand of the Philistine, and into the hand of King Moab, and they fought against them." So again, we've covered this a few times before, but this is a part of Samuel where they are recounting the times God had delivered the children of Israel. So they are going back and recounting, just like we talked about in the Old Testament. We would go over and over where it seems like Numbers and Deuteronomy and even Exodus cover the same thing a few times over. It's not because they happen 3 separate times. It's recounting God's deliverance. It's further instruction, further talk about it. Verse 10, "And they cried unto the Lord and said, We have sinned because we have forsaken the Lord and have served Balaam and Ashtaroth. But now deliver us out of the hand of our enemies, and we will serve thee. And the Lord sent Jerubbaal and Bedan," and I believe here, I didn't get to say as much as I wanted to, but I believe I saw that Bedan is Barak, that's another name for him, Jephthah, and delivered you out of the hand of your enemies on every side, and you dwelled safe. So again, we see that he is used to talk. He is used here where he was used of God to deliver the children of Israel out of the hand of their enemies. And then also, if we turn to Hebrews chapter 11, what's often referred to as kind of the hall of faith, or the chapter of faithful men, faithful people, not just men, but faithful people of the Lord. He's mentioned there as well. In Hebrews 11, verse 32, "And what shall I say more? For the time would fail me to tell you of Gideon, and of Barak, and of Samson, and of Jephthah, and of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, Stop the mouth of lions, quench the violence of the fire, escape the edge of the sword. Out of weakness were made strong. Wax valiant and fight. Turn to fight the armies of the aliens. So I go back. I was pretty tough. I just called him a blanket coward. I believe the Bible shows here that he was used to deliver God's people, but I believe he was acting cowardly here. And I think we all could look at our life and think of times that we have acted cowardly, and probably times that we've acted brave in the Lord to fight the fight or to face circumstances we need to. I think we can look at David. I know David is a favorite among many. He was a man for God's own heart, but if we look at his life, there were times he acted cowardly. So I don't know if I believe that Barak was just a coward in total, but he was acting cowardly here. So I felt like I was a little tough on Barak, but I don't believe he was living like he should, because it seems in verse 6 and 7 that God told him, hey, you need to take 10,000 men, go to the river Kishon, and fight Sisera, and he was afraid to unless Deborah would go with him. And obviously, as we talked about last week, men, there are times that we'll be called to go do things that are scary. Especially Brother Austin, there'll be times that he'll be called to fight off the bears and the lions to defend the sheep, the flock here. And he can't do it as long as Sister Alyssa or someone else is holding his hand. He's got to do it because he trusts in the Lord. And men, we've got to protect our families, and it can't be just when someone's holding our hand. We've got to go and fight the bear and the lion that wants to take our family at times. So I just wanted to address that. I was pretty rough on Barak, but he is in the hall of faith, the chapter of faith where a lot of godly men. But I love that last verse, I think in 34, where it says, through weakness they were made strong. He was weak, like we all are, but his faith in the Lord and the Lord who delivered him, he was meant to look strong. So again, I believe Barak should have gone and fought against Sisera when the Lord told him to do so, without having to wait for Deborah. But again, I could probably look at my life and think of all the things I should have done when the Lord told me to, and I drug my feet. So now let us get back to reading the rest of the chapter today. I believe we'll be able to close it out. It's not super complex, I would say. I think it's thankful the Lord has given me understanding reading the end of it. But it's a neat passage of history. So we'll read the rest of the chapter and kind of go through bit by bit and see how far we get today. And I know we ended in verse 10, but let's start back in verse 4 just to give some context of the matter. And Deborah, so Judges 4, verse 4. And Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel at that time. And she dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel and Mount Ephraim. And the children of Israel came up to her for judgment. And she sent and called Barak, the son of Abinum, out of Kadesh Naphtali, and said unto him, hath not the Lord God of Israel commanded, saying, go and draw toward Mount Tabor, and take with thee 10,000 men of the children of Naphtali and the children of Zebulun? So again, she's saying, hadn't the Lord told you to do this? The Lord had given her wisdom that he had spoken this charge to Barak, and she's challenging him. Hadn't the Lord told you to do this? Verse 7, and I will draw unto thee to the river Kishon, Sisera, the captain of Jabin's army. So again, Jabin was one of those kings that would not fight on his own. He had a general who fought for him. With his chariots and his multitude, and I will deliver him into thine hand. And Barak said unto her, if thou wilt go with me, then I will go. But if thou wilt not go with me, then I will not go. And she said, I will surely go with thee, notwithstanding the journey that thou takest shall not be for thine honor, for the Lord shall sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. And Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. And Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and he went up with 10,000 men at his feet, and Deborah went up with him. When it says at his feet, it means that he was in charge. He was the military leader. Now, verse 11. Now Heber, the Kenite, which was the children of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, had severed himself from the Kenites, from the Kenites, and pitched his tent unto the plain of Zaanannim, which is by Kadesh. And they showed Sisera that Barak, the son of Abinum, was gone up to Mount Tabor. And Sisera gathered together all his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron, and all the people that were with him, from Harosheth of the Gentiles unto the river Kishon. And Deborah said unto Barak, up, For this is the day in which the Lord hath delivered Sisera into thine hand. Is not the Lord gone out before thee? So Barak went down from Mount Tabor, and 10,000 men after him. And the Lord discomforted Sisera and all his chariots and all his host with the edge of the sword before Barak, so that Sisera lighted down off his chariot and fled away on his feet. But Barak pursued after the chariots and after the host unto Harosheth of the Gentiles, and all the host of Sisera fell upon the edge of the sword, and there was not a man left. Howbeit Sisera fled away on his feet to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was peace between Jabin the king of Hazor and the house of Heber the Kenite. And Jael went out to meet Sisera, and said unto him, Turn in, my lord, turn in to me, fear not. And when he had turned in unto her into the tent, she covered him with a mantle. A mantle is like a blanket, a robe, some kind of covering, probably that he had been running, was tired, weary, something like as a comfort. When I said that, I was like, she covered him with the top of a fireplace? But it's not that. It's like a tunic. And he said unto her, Give me, I pray thee, a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. And she opened a bottle of milk, and gave him drink, and covered him. And he said unto her, Stand in the door of the tent, and it shall be, when any man doth come and inquire of thee, and say, Is there any man here? Thou shalt say, No. Then Jael, Heber's wife, took a nail of the tent, and took a hammer in her hand, and went softly unto him, and smote the nail into his temples, and fastened it into the ground. For he was fast asleep and weary, so he died. And behold, as Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out to meet him, and said unto him, Come, and I will show thee the man whom thou seekest. And when he came into her tent, behold, Sisera lay dead, and the nail was in his temples. So God subdued on that day Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the children of Israel. And the hand of the children of Israel prospered and prevailed against Jabin, the king of Canaan, until they had destroyed Jabin, king of Canaan. Pretty direct. So she took care of business. So we see here, we'll pick up in verse 10 and just go through it a little bit by a little bit and dive a little deeper into it. But back in verse 10, we see that Barak has Deborah's presence, and he now enacts upon the Lord's commandment for battle, mentioned in verse 6 and 7. He gathers up 10,000 men to Kadesh, men from the tribe of Zebulun and the tribe of Naphtali, to take on Sisera, the general of the army of Jabin. We see in verse 11 we're introduced to Heber, a Canaanite man, again, who was one of the children of Moses' father-in-law, which is a reference back to Judges 1, verse 16. And I'm just going to read it there, but Judges 1, verse 16 says, And the children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up out of the city of palm trees, Jericho, with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which lieth in the south of Arad, and they went and dwelt among the people. So we see here that's a reference back to Moses' father-in-law's line, his family. And these people had dwelt with the children of Israel, but it seems that this man had severed himself from that. He had severed himself from the Canaanite people, and he went and dwelt in this plain. He went and dwelt in this plain amongst the heathen, it seems like. He went and dwelt amongst Kadesh, but he made peace with the heathen. It seems that Heber as well made known to Sisera and Jabin's army that Barak was on the move, moving up to Mount Tabor, where we read in verse 17, it seems that these two men are on the same side. There's peace there, so there's no threat. There's no reason that Jabin thinks that Heber is still loyal to the children of Israel. It seems that there has been peace made there with the enemy. A little side note on Mount Tabor. Mount Tabor was in the mountain range called Jezreel, about 6 miles east of Nazareth. It served as a boundary point for the tribes of Naphtali, Issachar, and Zebulun. If you look at Joshua 19, verse 22. And it also was a place where the children of Israel worshiped the Lord at Mount Tabor. And where that is, if you turn to Deuteronomy 33, and I don't want you just to take my word for it, I can misspeak. But in Deuteronomy 33, verse 18, it says, "And of Zebulun he said, Rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out, and Ishkar in thy tents. They shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of the treasures hid in the sand." So it was the only mountain in this region, so it's very likely that they are talking about Mount Tabor is the only mountain near where they are speaking of there in the Bible. And so we see here that it says that they will offer sacrifices of righteousness there, of thankfulness, I believe, for the blessings God gave them in the region he settled them. Now back to our text. In verse 12, we see that Heber has made aware to Sisera that Barak gathered these men and they were moving. They were on the move, probably thinking that they were about to fight. They were on their way to battle. Something was going on, right? 10,000 men don't just usually go for a leisurely stroll. So seeing this move, Sisera gathered together all of his troops and all of his chariots. And I know we've covered it over and over, but the message, there's a guy Tyler and I used to listen to who preached a lot. He always said Jesus told his disciples for 3.5 years he was going to die, rise again, and come back, and they were sad when he died. So probably it's not bad to reiterate some things, but we see that these chariots had caused men previous to completely crumble in the sight of them. Judah was so afraid of these chariots that he would not even go engage with these enemies or these people occupying the promised land. When he saw those tribes, I believe he just ran in fear, because this was the most modern warfare technology at the time, the most advanced, kind of like I would assume if you walked down and saw nothing but just tanks or cannons the first time. And we see that, I believe that an emphasis is put there because we're going to see the Lord deliver his people in the spite of what was their stumbling block. And not only does Sisera get all of his people, he gets all of his men, all of his chariots, but where do they go? They gather together and they move to the river Kishon. We note in verse 7 that these troops following Sisera did not, by happenstance, just move to the river Kishon. They did it because it was the Lord's predestined will that he would draw them there, just like he told Barak and Deborah. We see predestination all throughout the Bible if we just pick it up and read. God had told him, I am going to draw Sisera to Kishon. Barak moved. Sisera was provoked to gather his men and go to Kishon. Not by happenstance, not in coincidence, but because the Lord's providential will was that he would go there. Sisera had moved his whole army to the river to wage war against Barak and the children of Israel. And what they don't know or understand is this meant that they were waging war against God Almighty. And if you're an enemy of God, you will never win that battle. We see again in verse 14 that Deborah is the one that has to rally up Barak. In verse 14, she says, and Deborah said unto Barak, up, like, hey, get up. It's time to go fight. It's time to go. Today is the day the Lord has delivered them into your hands. She has to rally Barak and subsequently his troops to war to follow what the Lord had promised. She spoke, today is the day that God will deliver Sisera and Jabin's army into your hands. And I really like that part in verse 14 where she says, is not the Lord gone out before thee? What do you have to fear, my son? Has not the Lord already gone and promised the victory? All you have to do is walk. And honestly, if we look at ourselves, that's what we've been promised. Jesus has defeated death. Have we not already been promised the victory? If you're saved here today, all we have to do is wake up and trust and be obedient. And we look at that and say, yeah, Barak, just go fight. But then look at your life and think, how often is it just to get up and be obedient? What other factors come into our life? And maybe you all don't have any, probably just me. But how many things that would stop me from obeying like I should, from walking in complete faith like I should? That simple statement in verse 14, is not the Lord gone out before thee? No matter what I encounter, do I not believe God is sovereign? Won't he protect me from it all? Hasn't he told me he'll never leave nor forsake me? Hasn't Jesus told me, "O death, where is thy sting?" Because he's defeated it. What do I have to fear? Honestly, nothing. But I fear things every day. And that's why I wanted to walk my comments back a little bit on Barak, is because, boy, I'm like Barak. Lord says, stand up. Lead your home like you should. Raise your children like you should. Study your Bible like you should. Teach them about me like you should. Make time for me like you should. And how often do I say, well, Lord, I've got to work. Well, Lord, they're acting bad today. Well, Lord, I'll do it if you make this easier. No, I just need to get up and go. What a conviction, what a comforting part of the verse, and what a convicting part of the verse. Is not the Lord gone out before thee? What's stopping you? Should be nothing. Almost as he's saying here, do you not see that the Lord is fighting for you? He's promised you that he's going to deliver them to Kashan. That's where they are. He promised you, he told you to take 10,000 men. How many men do you have? 10,000. Do you not see the pieces of the puzzle falling into place? What a blessed reminder that the Lord is in this life with us. He has already gone out. Anything that we face, he's faced. Anything that we'll ever encounter, he's encountered, and he's defeated. Whatever we go through, he has already determined. I love that verse in the Bible. I can't think of it now. I didn't write it down, but we serve not a high priest that is not touched by the afflictions we go through. I'm paraphrasing, but we serve a high priest that knows everything we've been through, that knows everything we go through, and not only knows it, but is attentive to it. Allie grew up in the Catholic Church. You can't get a hold of the Pope. You can't even get a hold of the head of the diocese of your region. We all live in America, and I think we're thankful to do so. We can't get a hold of the president. He doesn't know what we go through. We can't even get a hold of our governor. It's hard to get a hold of the mayor. Hard to get a hold of the Senate. But we serve a high priest that knows everything we've been through. And so when we wake up and it's a tough day, and I feel like I've had some lately, is it not for us just to remind ourselves, is not the Lord gone out from before thee? Do you walk alone? Do you walk in this life alone? Do you lead the Lord and drag him behind you? No. Is not the Lord gone out from before us? It made me think, I told Allie this, but when I was flying out to Minnesota, we were on the plane leaving Nashville, and it was early in the morning, and I was just sitting there with my AirPods in, and I could hear across the aisle this lady and this man talking. They were just jawing and whatnot, and plane started up, it sounded like, and you smelled like some fumes. And to me, I just thought it was like maybe the engine started going. I mean, it was the first flight. It was one of the first flights in the morning. So I was like, I just thought that's what was going on. And she had a meltdown. She thought she smelled smoke. I mean, she had a full-blown panic, yelling, "Is that smoke? Is that smoke? Is that smoke?" I mean, just totally freaked out. And I couldn't help but think how sorry I felt for her, because she has her faith in that airplane. Her faith is in that airplane to be good, to be perfect, to be her safety vessel from where she was to where she was going. That was what her faith was in. And the moment she smelt something that shook her faith, she panicked. And I'm not saying like, oh, look at me, I'm perfect. But thankfully the Lord has, because like landing, because me and Allie have been on some planes where we've landed pretty hard. And landing used to be kind of something I'd kind of brace for. But now I just go into it and I just think, Lord, if you want me to go, it don't matter how good the pilot is or how good the plane is, I'm going. And Lord, if you want me here, it don't matter how bad the pilot is or how bad the plane is, I'm coming home. And that's what my faith can be in, because I know the Lord has gone before me. He has written my life out. My life is going to follow exactly to his will. And how sad is it for people today in this world that trust in their ability, their job, their car, their plane, and not in the Lord. I can get on a plane, I can pop in my car. Now again, don't be tempting the Lord thy God and start taking parts off your car and saying, well, let's see you, Lord, how you doing? Now, I'm not saying that, and don't ignore warning signs. Don't ignore warning signs. Or fall asleep at the wheel and see if the Lord will guide your car not to crash into somebody. But don't ignore things like that. But our faith should not be in us or the things that we drive. Our faith should be that the Lord has gone before us and fought this battle. He has already determined the victory. And I told Alice, man, I hate that for her, that she is so reliant on that plane when my reliance comes on the Lord. And now I fail at that every day because I worry like it isn't. But we should be different in that. We should be different in that, not just on an airplane, but in life. When things are hard, we all interact with lost people. Verse 15 of our text, we see, I believe, the total and utter victory. No doubt, no split decision, no draw, complete knockout. Barak and the 10,000 men, children of Israel, who fight all the host of Jabin's army as well as the 900 chariots, utterly destroyed, discomfited with the sword. And I love it because of the beginning of verse 15. Who gets the credit? The Lord. Made me think, who gets the credit in our life? Who gets the glory for your success and your good times? Who gets the glory and success for leading you out of the tough times, for getting you through a heartache? We've all been through them. We all will go through them if you haven't. If you're young here, life ain't perfect. It's going to be rough. Joel Osteen's a liar. I remember hearing him one time saying, if I'm a good father, I want to give my kids good clothes. And if my kids came in here wearing nothing, you'd think I was a bad father. Well, John the Baptist sure wasn't wearing designer. Maybe designer camel hair, but life's going to be hard. There'll be times that it'll feel like you're alone. There'll be times you feel like there's no way out. But the Lord is all, if you're one of His, if you're truly one of His, He has promised you that He will never leave nor forsake you. It doesn't mean you might not succumb to some illness, some injury. But again, child of God, this life is not the best that is yet to come. The best that is yet to come is eternity with Him. Again, it does not say that Barak discomfited Sisera. It does not say the 10,000 men discomfited Sisera. It says the Lord did. I would encourage you and challenge you as you talk to your family, talk to your friends, you talk to people you don't even know. Who gets the glory and success? Who gets the glory and honor in your life? That could be a great witness. Just simple words. Never know what the Lord could use. We are just simply His workmanship. Right? If a man makes a great pot, as I know Derek talked about, I think when he gave Sunday school, when he makes a great pot, we don't say, man, that pot did a great job. No, we say, man, that potter's talented. Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, abandons his men, his army, and runs for the hills. We see, again, another example of terrible leadership. He sees there is no way of winning this fight, and he hightails it out there. Some leader, huh? It reminds me a lot of what sin will promise you. It'll maybe look like 900 chariots and a whole bunch of men that are willing to go fight anything, but man, when time gets tough, they hightail and run. He runs back to his home of Horesheth, which is mentioned in verse 2. If you look at that in verse 2, it says, and the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Horesheth of the Gentiles. So that's his home. He runs back home, seeking refuge from the battle and from death. And we also, I believe, see here a change in Barak. We see a man who was waiting on Deborah to pat his back on every step he took, to now seeing that men were retreating and trying to run away, and he took full vigor. And I think finally saw and trusted the Lord that the Lord was going to deliver him, and went and took care of every man, I believe, without any fear of losing, because he knew who went out before him. And in verse 17, we see that Sisera makes it to the tent of Heber, Moses' father-in-law's kin, because there was peace there. But Heber is not there. His wife, Jael, is there. He believes that this is a safe place, a place where there is peace. He can come for protection. Verse 18, we see that she even comes out and welcomes her into his tent. She says, "Come unto me, Lord." And again, that Lord is not, it's a sign of respect. If you look at the medieval times of just royalty and leadership, Lord was a term of respect. I think even Sarah calls Abraham her Lord. So it's a term of respect here. It's lowercase as well. But she says, "Come unto me, fear not. Don't be afraid. Come on in." And she even provides him, like I said, with that mantle, which is a loose-fitting tunic worn as an outer garment, like a blanket or a robe. Again, rest after the battle, after his, not for sure how long it took him to get where he was, but he had to come some way where he's met with comfort and milk. And after he drinks his milk, he asks her to stand guard of the house and to lie, saying that if any man is here hiding, that she would say no. And I believe, too, we see he asked that in verse 20. Verse 21, we never see that she agrees to it. We never see that she says, "Okay, I will." She never says, "Okay, yes, Lord, I'll lie." It's just stated. And we see that Sisera did not need to worry about other men coming to inquire about him in the tent. He needed to worry about the woman in the tent. But he didn't know that. As Sisera falls asleep after his long journey, probably worn out, tired, mentally, physically, just whipped. He falls asleep, and this woman takes a stake, a tent stake, and drives that through one temple, out the other, into the ground. She kills him. Sounds like she swings a hammer better than me. And if you look at this, this is a direct violation of the peace treaty that her husband had with Sisera, that her husband had with Jabin. This is a direct violation. If we read, we've already read it, but we never see anywhere why she did it, except for the obvious. We never see anywhere why she did this. We didn't see that she was a secret ally of the children of Israel. We didn't see that she was a secret children of Israel who felt empowered to defend her people. Why did she turn totally from her husband at this time and do something that's pretty out there? Something we've already talked about today. Because the Lord predestined that Sisera would die at the hands of a woman. As Jael sees Barak coming, I'm sure she is fully aware of who he's looking for. And she comes out to meet them and let her know of her handiwork. We see the chapter ends with the fulfillment of what the Lord told Barak and Deborah, that what he was going to do and what he did. As I mentioned, we're never given in this passage an answer to why Jael went against the peace treaty that her husband had with Sisera, that her husband had with Jabin. We're never told why she chose to violate it. But we know that she did. And although there's no tangible explanation given, no military background, nothing we see where the Lord came and spoke to her and said, "Do this," there's none of that here. But we know that it happened, that he died by the hands of Jael, a woman, because God promised it would happen. God promised it would be accomplished. And God's promises and his will be accomplished even when it doesn't make earthly or human sense. Praise God for that. So as we close out the chapter, I don't know. I love it, but I feel very convicted of it in verse 14. I would just leave you with this. Whatever you're going through today, child of God, if you're saved, is not the Lord gone out before thee? Does he not know what your life will consist of? Does he not know the day that he'll call you home, whether it's through death or through Jesus coming back and calling you in the sky? Does he not know every facet of your life? Did he not know that he was raising, as I've got to learn Jada more, did he not know that he was raising Jada to marry Clark? Because that's exactly what he was doing. He was preparing her to marry him. Did he not know that I would struggle in school and have to be there an extra year or two because I was an idiot, but I got to meet Allie? Did he not know that he was going to lead all of us here to be at this church body together to serve him? Did he not know that he was going to call you to preach, make you wait, bring you to the end of your wit, and then call you to be a pastor here? Did he not know? Had he not gone out before and already read it? He has. So, child of God, whatever you're facing today, trust in the fact that the Lord has gone out before thee. He has fought the battle. You're not fighting on your own. Like that woman on the airplane, you're not trusting in your ability or your job or your skill. And that's a scary thing, I think, especially for us men. We like to have some kind of control. Not saying you women don't, but I think I can speak to men because I am one. I like to know that if I go to work and I bust my rear end and I try really hard and I try to get better, that I can work hard and I can provide a good living and I can make good money. But I have not gone out from before thee and written the story of my life. God has. And my trust should be in that. If you're lost here today, it's scary to think that the Lord has gone out from before thee. You will die at the hands of the Lord. There's a battle of Armageddon coming where you will fight for the devil if you die lost. You will fight against God, and as we just see here, you'll never win. We went to, I think it was a lockout we were at together. I don't know if you remember him, but a guy preached. I don't know his name, but he looked like Hugh Jackman in the Wolverine. And he preached about no middle ground in the Lord. That he talked about, I think it was World War I, because it was trench warfare. And he said if someone was coming through that dead man's area, and you couldn't tell if they were on your side or not, what did you do? You shot them. Are you blending in today? Are we blending in today to this world? Whose side are you on? There is no man's land for the Lord. You're either before him and you can take comfort in the fact the Lord has gone out before you and fought this battle, promised you victory of this life. Or if you're lost here today, I pray you would tremble knowing that if you died today, the Lord has gone out from before you and your defeat is already promised. I don't say it to scare you. I don't say it to be mean. I say it to be honest. Because for 5 years I sat there and was afraid to go to sleep because I knew if I died, I would die forever, an enemy of God. And that's no place you want to be. Brother Clark, will you dismiss us in a word of prayer, please?